Today we'll be discussing about errors in Excel. So how do you resolve when you see an error code in Excel? What do you do and how to resolve such error code? The first one here is a division error, which means you are trying to divide by 0. So let's try and create the error and let's see how we will resolve it. So here we have a table here. We want to calculate the units sold by each of the salesmen in an hour. So the formula will be used as units sold divided by the number of hours worked. So when we drag this down, you see a division error here. Here it is recorded that this person worked for 0 hours and sold 17 units. So because you are trying to divide by 0, that's why you're having an error, a division error. So what you need to do is either you remove this person totally, or you put the appropriate hours worked by the person. So let's assume the person worked for 32 hours. Immediately the error will correct itself. So you have the person working for this number of hours. Okay. The second one here is name of function or variable not recognized. That's a name error code. So let's see how that one works. Let's assume you are trying to find the average of the hours worked by each of the salesmen. So let's do that. We are looking for the average. So immediately you see a name error code. So what happened, if you look at it very well, when I was trying to type average, I didn't type the correct way. So average is not spelled this way. We have average. So this is the correct spelling of average. When I use the correct spelling now, you will see that the error will be resolved. Then the other way you can get this name error code is, let's assume you gave your hours worked a named range. So let's give it a name range. Create from selection, top row. So I've given this a name range. If you select the whole of this, you will see hours worked here as the name range. So let's recalculate this average. So average. I can decide to use the name range now. So hours worked. But instead of typing hours worked, let's assume I only typed hours and I stopped. It will see you have a name error. But immediately, if I can use the appropriate name, which is hours worked, your name error will disappear. Let's move to the third error code. Okay, the third type of error we have here is a num error. Number error occurs when you have invalid argument or result too big or small in Excel. So let's give an example of too big or too small. Let's say we have 1000 raised to power of 1 million. Excel will complain because this number is too big for Excel to store. And also, when you have a number that is very small, let's assume you divide 3 divided by this number, also will definitely give you a num error because it's not about being big again, it's too small. So the other one is when you are doing an impossible calculation. Impossible calculation occurs let's use square root as an example. For square root, you can only find the square root of a positive number. So this will be correct. But when immediately you have a negative number, you have a num error because you are finding the square root of a negative number. And if you want to resolve this, you can actually use absolute. And absolute converts a negative number to a positive number. So you can find the square root of the number. Then the third possible way is when you supplied an invalid argument. In some cases, when you have an invalid argument, you have a value error, but in some of the cases, you have a num error. An example is what we have here. We've used a date difference. That's a kind of formula that you use to find the difference between two dates. But for this formula, you can only find the difference between a positive when you are moving forward. You can't move backward in your date. So if you look at the date here, this is 2020 and this is 2023. But here you have 2022 as your start date and 2019 as your end date. Which is the problem? Here you have 2023, but June and December, so you could find the date different. But when you move from 2022 to 2019, it will give you a num error. The easy thing to do here is just to swap this date. If you swap this date, let's assume I change this to 2019, and immediately it clears my error because this is November in 2019, this is May in 2019, while this is October in 2019. So immediately it resolves the error. The fourth error type here is your reference error. Reference not valid or is likely deleted. So sometimes maybe when you are using a VLOOKUP or when you copy your formula down, you might have copied it and it's referencing where it's not available. So it will give you a reference error. Here we have a VLOOKUP formula to look up for, we are looking up for Kim West within this range in column 4, and this is the fourth column. What is the value of units sold per hour by Kim West, which we have here, which is 0.53 plus. But let's assume I mistakenly put, instead of putting column 4, I put column 6, which doesn't, column 5 or 6, which doesn't exist in this place. So immediately you see a reference error. It means it cannot see column 6 within this your table. We only have column 5, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. That's what. So immediately you look at your formula, you will notice that that's the error. You just change it to the appropriate column and the error will disappear. The next error, which is the fifth one, is your value error. When you use the wrong argument or text where number should be used. If you use text where number should be used or the wrong argument in your formula, it gives you this value error. Let's cite an example. Here we are looking for average. The unit sold per hour formula is H12 divided by HG12. That's hours work divided by units sold. So if I change any of these to a text, let me just put X in any one of them, immediately you see a value error. It means that it cannot divide text by a number or a number by a text. So let's return it back to what it was and we will have it back. The other common way you can have a value error is, let's cite an example. Let's assume we have a date value, 12th of December 2023, and maybe January 31st 2024. So if you want to calculate the networking days between these two, you will see, let me do the network days. The start date is this and the end date is this. So the network days between these two, let's change it to general, is 23 working days. So if you change one of these to a text or to any value, it will change. That is not a date, it will change it to a value error. So because it cannot find the difference between this date value and this text value, so you have to revert back to your text, to your date value. Or anytime you store, even if you store your date as text, you also have the same value error. So let's move to the next one, which is your hash sign showing plenty times. It means cell too narrow to display result, and this can occur when you do a calculation and what the resulting, or even if you type into a cell and the result is the place is too narrow to show your result. Let's assume I type in just a random number here. Because this place is too narrow, it's showing this value. It means I need to expand it more for it to show what is there. And sometimes it occurs when you do a calculation, let's say you do 700 and this year. So if you do a calculation between the two, this multiply by this, because the value is too big to be shown here, it will result into an error. So all you need to do is to expand the width of your column. All you need to do is to expand the width of your column, and that will resolve the error. The next one is the NA error. NA error occurs when the value you are looking for can't be found. So it's either maybe you misspelled what you used in your argument, or sometimes it's actually a correct response. Maybe what you are looking for is not available where you are looking for it, so to give you an NA error. So let me still use this my VLOOKUP. If I add any value, if I remove my Kim West here and you can't see key here within this list, to give me an error. That's an example that there is no key here, so what it's having here will be an NA error. So sometimes if it's a correct response, you can decide to trap your NA error inside an if error formula. Okay, the next one here is spill. The spill error. It occurs when you are trying to write out a formula and the results spill to cells that you have values inside, and those values are not allowing for the display of the array. So let's see an example. Let's use a sort function here. So we want to sort this this table using our second column, the number of hours worked. So that's 2. The sort index normally is ascending, so let's leave the sort index. So the sort order is ascending, so let's leave that. When I press enter key, you will see a spill error, and what is causing the spill error is just this number here. And immediately if I delete this number, you will notice our formula, the error disappear, and what we sorted is now shown in our Excel file as sorted. So that's all you need to solve a spill error. You just delete whatsoever is blocking the space of your array to display. So we've been able to solve that. So let's move to the next one, which is your null error. Let me remove this from here. So your null error occurs when you have overlapping ranges. So an example, let's assume I want to sum the total number of hours worked by the first 3 persons here. So I use my sum. When I'm using my sum, I pick this, then I put a space, pick this, put a space, and pick this. You can look at what I've done here. Instead of me using a comma to separate them, I'm using a space to separate them. Immediately enter the formula, it will show a null error, because I'm not separating it by the appropriate, I'm not separating the numbers by the references by the appropriate delimiter, which is a comma. So when I change it back to a comma, it gives me the right answer. Also, this can also happen when you have a range. Let's assume you are fine. We can also, let's use an average this time around. You want to find the average of this first 3 1, and you put the first one, and you use a space, you put the last guy. It will also give you a null error. What you need here is to have, for a range of cell, you need a full column, and when you put the full column, you have the appropriate answer, and you won't have your error message again. So we'll move to our last error message here, which is CALC error message, and it says calculation problems involving arrays or too many cells, or cells contains a lambda function. So let's look at how to solve that. Let's see a sample of a calculation error. Let's use a filter function. A filter function, you've selected the cells, the array you needed, and you want to filter by the name. The name should be equals to maybe one value of the name, but here we decide to put X. So we want the name should be equals to X. And if you look at this, no name here is equals to X. So when you press enter key, it will give you a calculation error because you are asking for what is not available. But let's assume we use one of the name here. Let's use Kim West, and you see our filter function correctly. So the other way is when you try to use a lambda function and you do not call your lambda function within the same cell. That can also give you a calculation error. In this video for today, we've been able to look at 10 different error codes in Excel and how to resolve those error codes. You've seen different ways. Maybe you are making some calculations and you have some error code being generated and you've seen how to resolve it. Tell you that we are planning to make another video to show how to trace error codes in a file that you are not the one that produced it. Let's assume you are passed an Excel file, a very large, with some very large data, and it contains a lot of error codes, or you want to search for within it for error codes. So you can subscribe to our channel. We are working on producing another Excel video where you will be able to see how to trace all the tools Excel have in order to trace error codes and how to get them resolved. If you have also enjoyed this video, you've learned something from it, please like and share the video, and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.